Let's go. Don't waste your life, man. I know a lot of people that are scared they gon' die. Couple of them thinking they'll be living in the sky. While I'm here living, man, I gotta ask why. What am I here for? I gotta figure out. Waste my life, no, I gotta make it count. If Christ is real, then what am I gonna do about everything in Luke 12:15? Now to 21, you really gotta go and check it out. Paul said, if Christ ain't resurrected, we wasted our lives. But that implies that our life's built around Jesus being alive. Every day I'm living, trying to show the world why Christ is more than everything you'll ever try. Better than pretty women sitting and living to get a minute of any women, a minute you admire. It ain't no lie, we created for him. Out of the dust, he made us for him. Alexa said he saves us for him. Jesus comes and he breaks us for him. Magnify the Father, our Father was something lesser. He made us so we could bless him. To the world we confess him, resurrect him. So I know I got life. Matter of fact, better man, I know I got Christ. You don't see his ways in my days and my nights. You can hit my brakes, you can stop my lights. Man, I lost my rights, lost my life. Forget the money, cause the toss that ice. The cost is Christ. They can never offer me anything on the planet that will cost that price. Yeah.
So the devil just can't hang with us. Christian youth, them a stand with us. Living a driven, giving a vision, fulfilling the commission he handed us. London to Los Angeles, the rap evangelist. My daddy wouldn't abandon us.
I got a backpack full of jets and I give a Johnny Max.
So are you ready to jam with us? So let's go. Give me the word and let's go. Persecution, let's go. Tribulation, let's go. Procrastination, let's go. Procrastination, let's go. Hung on the cross in the cold. Down for the young and the old. Can't say you never know. Heaven knows how many souls are going to hell and to heaven. So we gotta go in to get them.
Yeah, do it for Christ. You trying to figure out what to do with your life. You make a lot of money, hope you're doing it right. Because the money is God, you better steward it right and stay focused. You ain't got no ride, your life ain't wrapped up in what you drive. The clothes you wear, the job you work, the color of your skin, now you're Christian first. People get to living for a job, make a little money, start living for a car. Get them a wife, a house, kids, and a dog. When they retire, they're living high on the hog. But guess what, they didn't never really live it all. To live is Christ, and that's Paul, I recall. To die is gain, so for Christ we give it all. He's the treasure you can never find in them all. See your money, your singleness, marriage, talent, your time. They belong to you to show the world that Christ is divine. That's why it's Christ in my rhyme. That's why it's Christ all the time. See, my whole world is built around him. He's the life in my life. I refuse to waste my life. He's too true to chase that ice. Here's my gift of time, cause I'm constantly trying to be used to praise the Christ. If he's truly raised to life, then this news should change your life. If by his grace you can put your faith in a place that rules your days and nights. Yes.
So what you're going to do is you're going to hold on to it and then just start spinning. But not yet, not yet. Who's going to mummy? You are? Okay, you're going to hold on to it and start spinning. Once the whole roll is emptied on you, then here's your action. Here's your action. You have to floss. You got to try. Yeah, you got to try. But as a mummy. You got to try as a mummy, okay? And then what's going to happen is, once they perform the action as a dizzy mummy, you guys are going to decide who won by way of cheerometer, okay? Yeah. Alrighty, so here we go. On your marks. Get set. Go! Go, 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 go. You can go faster. Oh, you got more, you got more. You gotta go slower. There it is, there it is. The mummifier has to work a little harder here. There it is. There it is. The girls got it figured out. Oh man, you guys are. No, it's not. It's not going well at all. You guys are doing awesome over here. Okay. There we go. Let me see the floss, Naomi. Come on, let me see it. Yeah, get it, girl. You guys got to cheer her on. Come on. Okay. Here we go. I got to see your floss. I didn't see it at all. Okay. You guys saw the challenge. I'm going to do a cheerometer. I'm going to hold the microphone over their head. And what you got to do is cheer louder for the team that you thought won. On your mark, you guys said we're going to start over here. Alrighty, I'm going to go over here. I don't think I heard that really well. Here we go. What about over here? Wow, okay, I got to go one more time. You guys got to convince me here. Okay, let me try that again. Alrighty. And the answer, by way of decibels, is the winners! High five! High five!
I was buried beneath my shame. And who could carry that kind of weight? Oh, it was my turn. Yeah, till I met you. I was breathing, but not alive. And all my failures, I tried to hide. Oh, it was my turn. Yeah, till I met you. Real big church, come on. You call my everything. He's redeeming everything. He's redeeming everything from what is seen to the unseen. He's redeeming everything to what is seen to the unseen. Rise and shine, for your light has come. Rise and shine, for your light has come. I'm living in the light now. 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 Yes, I am. I'm living in the light now. 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 Come on, sing it out. I'm living in the light now. 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 Yes, I am. I'm living in the light now. I'm living in the light now. I'm living in the light now. I'm living in the beautiful light. I'm living in the light now. 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 Come on, let's dance tonight. Dance tonight. We're walking in the light. 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 Don't you worry about being left behind. And we're walking in the light. I needed a rescue. My sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter. I was one, but you. Again. I need a rescue. I needed a rescue. My sin was. Come on, I need it. I need it. Come on, testify. When I was broken, you were my healer. Now your love is the air that I breathe. I have a future. My eyes are open. Oh, when you call my name.
Jesus, your name is power, breath and living water. You're such a marvelous mystery. Oh, it is. I'm filled with wonder. Oh, awestruck wonder at the mention of your name. What a beautiful name. Jesus, your name is power, breath and living water. You're such a marvelous mystery. Oh, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. To was and is to come. With all creation I say, praise the King of Kings. And you are my everything, and I will adore you, God. All the praise and all the glory, all must be unto your name. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God who was. With all creation, you are, and I will adore you. We've come to join the song before our lives, to raise our voice above. Heaven and earth alike. We've seen your faithful hand, your mercy without end, a king who bled and died, a God who sacrificed. So we enthroned upon the praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. And unto you, the slain and risen King, we lift our voice with heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all. Through this life we lead, on through eternity, our endless praise we cry. Jesus be glorified. And all through this life we lead, and all through eternity, To you the Savior is the King. We lift our voice in heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all. So be enthroned upon the praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. And unto you the Savior is the King. We lift our voice in heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all.
There's never been anyone like you. There's never been anyone like you. There's never been anyone like you. There's never been anyone like. Come on, let's just throne room worship, throne room adoration. Let's just focus on the beauty of Jesus. There's never been anyone like you. 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 Son of God. There's never been anyone like you. Son of Man. There's never been anyone like you. High and lifted up, high and lifted up. There's never been anyone like you. Oh, there's never been anyone like you. There's never been anyone like you. There's never been anyone like you. You hold the world in your hand, oh God. There's never been anyone like you. You are the sustainer of all things. There's never been anyone like you. You rule the nations, oh God. There's never been anyone like you. You are firmly seated on the throne. There's never been anyone like you. There's never been anyone like you.
Well, how many of you guys are so grateful for what God has done in your life? It is so good to worship with you. As we transition into time of the message and hearing from the Word of God, I want to tell you a story. I'll never forget this. I had the opportunity to be a counselor when I was in college at a particular camp, and as I was counseling one day at the end of the year, end of the summer, I was asked to come back the next year and be a program director. And I thought a lot about it, and the Lord gave me the wisdom to go for it. That's a long story short, basically. But the next year, I had the opportunity to be a program director, which is kind of somebody who's kind of in charge of a certain amount of counselors on each program. Well, I had the opportunity to lead a team of counselors on the 4th and 5th grade program. We called it juniors. Now, if you know anything about 4th and 5th graders, they are discovering a lot about their world, right? They're discovering and getting their hands on and learning and opening up their minds to so many things that this world has to offer. Now, if you're anything like me or some of my friends, when we were in 4th and 5th grade, you loved to see all things nice, close up. You wanted to see it and feel it and touch it and smell it for yourself, right? Well, I had this one particular 4th grade boy who loved insects and critters and feeling and touching so many different things, much more than I even did when I was his age. And so one day, he found this little albino garter snake, and he loved it. He picked it up, and he started chasing some girls around with this albino garter snake. And if you can imagine the scenario, they were freaking out. They were terrified. They were running away from him. And it was kind of somebody's job, some adult, some person in charge, whether it's a counselor or a program director or some leader, to help this boy realize that that's a bad idea right now. The point is not to scare all the girls. And I was really kind of hoping somebody else would go up to this boy and take the snake away from him, because my thought process went something like this. All right, if I go up to this boy, what happens if I remove the snake from his hand? On the one hand, I could be viewed as a hero, right? This girl would be like, oh, my word, Mr. Brant, you saved me. And all the other girls would be like, wow, that he's like the savior of the day, you know. And all the counselors would look up to me for my decisiveness. On the other hand, some of my thoughts went like, what if I grab this snake and it starts slithering up my arm or wrapping around my hand? I don't know much about snakes, so at the time, I didn't know it was a garter snake. All I knew it was completely white, and I could almost see through it. And it was weird looking. And I was like, what if this thing bites me and I turn like completely albino and like Spider-Man, but snake version? You know, what if the thing goes up my shirt and goes down my neck and into my pants and starts messing around, and I'm like freaking out, right? And so all of these thoughts are going into my head, and I just stood there, frozen. I didn't do anything. Just staring at this kid chasing these girls around, and my body somehow did not move. I didn't do anything. And here's the thing, we're in a series called Vibes. Vibes are kind of like emotions, and the thing about emotions is we experience so many different ones so many different times in our life. And sometimes without even realizing it, these vibes can end up controlling us or influencing our action in so many different ways. And the vibe that I want to talk about this particular night is a vibe that has the potential to control all of us. Fear. You know, that feeling of fear just surged through my body to the point that I couldn't do anything when I was watching this kid chase around snakes, or chase around girls with a snake. So you might have picked up by this by now, but I am terrified of snakes. I am a huge not fan of snakes. But here's the thing, all of us have experienced fear in some form or another, whether it's kept us from trying new things, or it's hurt our friendships, or it's created a script in our minds that convinces us about our lives, about things that are not true. And the crazy thing about fear is that our ability to experience fear is one of the things that actually makes us human. Think about it. Fear comes from the fact that we can gather information and think about the future. As humans, we wonder what if all the time. What if this happens, or what if that happens? And that is what makes us afraid. But the thing is, we are where we are today because as a human race, we've been able to accumulate knowledge, build on that knowledge, and then project into the future. And it's why we have continued to develop and to change and to adapt and to grow as human beings. But this same ability to fear allows us to imagine and to have hope and faith and to dream, which are great things. So our ability to gather information and think about the future actually has two sides. There's a fear side, and then there's a hope side. And I think we'd all agree that the hope side is amazing. We love coming up with things and being filled up with faith and imagining things and dreaming. But when the fear side raises its ugly head, the side that comes up with all these what ifs, it begins to make us feel a little bit crazy. Right? And they make our world shrink until pretty much everything that's in our minds is made up of fear. And fear has a way of shrinking our world to all we can see is fear. Think about the last time you were afraid. Was it just one moment, or did it find a way of consuming a lot of your day, taking up a lot of real estate in your mind throughout the entire day? See, that's what happens when fear takes over, that our world becomes really, really small. Our world becomes fear. But here's some good news. Jesus actually has a lot to say. In fact, more than we even have time to cover tonight. Jesus has a lot to say about fear. But the problem is, when we read what Jesus says about fear, we tend to just see one verse, it fits nice on a pillow or some Hobby Lobby frame or a greeting card, and we see it and we take it out of context, and it's like, don't fear. And you go like, okay, cool, but I just don't have like a fear switch in my heart. Like that's nice to say, but it's hard to do. So it doesn't feel very practical to just stop. Just quit it. Don't fear. And you're like, I don't know how to do that, right? So today I actually want to look at a passage where Jesus talks to some of his disciples about fear. But what I want to do is take a step back and give you a little bit of context for that. All right, so Jesus is with his 12 disciples, and they're following him around, and they're learning from him. But not only that, they're developing a friendship with him. Jesus' 12 disciples were also some of his closest friends. And so at one point, Jesus says in Matthew chapter 10, he says, Matthew chapter 10, verse 16, "Look, I'm sending you out as sheep among wolves." Think about it. Wolves are predators. Sheep are prey. So Jesus is like, you guys are the prey, and I'm going to let you loose with a bunch of predators. And you know what? Those guys that you usually run away from, I'm going to send you out there. And he gets more literal. He says, you're going to be arrested, and you're going to be beaten. And then to wrap it all up, he says, and don't be afraid. Which sounds so easy, right? We tend to read that story and we stop there, but when you look at it in context, it's actually part of a bigger story that starts chapters earlier. A couple chapters earlier in Matthew chapter 8, Jesus actually takes his disciples out on a faith field trip, so to speak. They're out in the middle of a boat in the Sea of Galilee. And while they were there, Matthew, one of Jesus' disciples, says that this happened. This is verse 24. Suddenly, a fierce storm struck the lake, with waves breaking into the boat. So Jesus and his disciples, little bitty boat, out in the middle of the lake, and I've actually been on that in one of these boats, and there's a passage between two mountains where wind begins to just pick up speed and whip right into the lake, and it starts creating an artificial storm in the lake that is overwhelming. It's almost disproportional how much wind and wave can be swept up in this lake of this Sea of Galilee. And so, without warning, the storm shows up. It's just like, boom, and there it is. And you think about it. All of the wind, and all of the rain, and all of the crashing of the waves, and even the thunder, in the middle of this boat, in the middle of the storm, on this lake, and they are kind of at the mercy of the storm. And what's Jesus doing? He is sleeping the whole time. Can you imagine that? The disciples are scared out of their mind, going crazy, thinking about what if, like hoping and praying their last prayers on planet Earth, and Jesus is like sleeping here in the boat, and so they go over and they shake him, and Jesus just kind of like casually wakes up. And Matthew chapter 8, verse 25 says, the disciples went and woke him up shouting, "Lord, save us, we're going to drown." They're frustrated that Jesus is sleeping, and they're freaking out. And so Jesus wakes up casually, and he kind of looks at them and goes, verse 26, "Why are you so afraid?" Now, I can only imagine the disciples' response to this. When they hear Jesus say, "Why are you so afraid?" They are soaked to the bone from the water. They are rocking back and forth from the waves. All they had to do was like point around them and go, that's why I'm afraid. Like any normal human would be. We're about to die. That's why I'm afraid. And Jesus actually wasn't really paying attention to what was right in front of them. He was teaching a lesson to them that was a whole lot bigger. He was teaching them about fear. And so when Jesus gets up, he doesn't panic. Which is kind of a way to say, no matter how scary the circumstances, Jesus is remaining calm. Then Matthew says that Jesus, he stood up and he spoke to the wind and the waves. He rebuked them, and suddenly there was great calm. Like mind-blowing experience. Can you imagine that? In the middle of all of this, suddenly just the sun comes out, the sea is flat, it's totally calm. The wind goes away. And they're amazed, they're mind blown. It's like this emoji, just like bing, just poof. And verse 27 says this, the disciples were amazed. "Who is this man?" they asked. "Even the wind and the waves obey him." This is unbelievable. The wind, the waves, listen to what Jesus said and change as a response. No, they were more than amazed. Like there was fear that was just like, whoa, kind of fear. Who is this guy that he can calm down a storm with his words? Jesus had so much power, and he used it to take care of them. He was never afraid. And in a moment, their confidence in Jesus overwhelmed the fear that was inside of them. And that's the point of this field trip that Jesus was taking them on, so to speak, to show them that their feelings of fear didn't have to control them or boss them around, to show them that there's somebody who's bigger and more capable than whatever they're afraid of. So back to the conversation where Jesus says that he's going to send them out as sheep among wolves, Matthew chapter 10. Jesus follows that up by saying in verse 28, "Don't be afraid of those who want to kill your body. They cannot touch your soul. Fear only God, who can destroy both soul and body in hell." In other words, if you're going to fear something, you might as well fear the right thing. A storm, not nearly as big as God. In these dangerous situations I'm sending you out into, like feeling like a sheep among wolves, don't be afraid, because they're not as big as God either. It's like he was saying, hey, remember that boat ride we were just on? You were afraid of the wrong thing. Sure, yeah, you have a right to be afraid. But don't you know that there is somebody with you who's more powerful than a storm? Can I speak that over you right now in your life? Whatever you're going through, there is somebody with you who is more powerful than that storm. And your fear, it doesn't have to be in fear of the storm. There is somebody who can overwhelm the fear of the storm because he's bigger. So Jesus goes on. Verse 29. "What is the price of 2 sparrows? Like 1 copper coin? But not a single sparrow can fall to the ground without your Father knowing it, and the very hairs on your head are numbered. So, as a result of this, therefore, because of what I just said, don't be afraid. You are more valuable to God than a whole flock of sparrows. Jesus is saying, God is paying attention to you. Don't be afraid. You're worth more than even the minute details that he pays very close attention to, like sparrows. You're worth more than even those things. Don't be afraid. God has numbered the very hairs, and if God cares about all these kinds of insignificant details, who on planet Earth cares about how many hairs on their head? Okay, maybe your father has a bald spot and he's counting it. But, you know what I mean? It's an insignificant detail, and even God cares about it. The point is, if he cares about these insignificant things, how much more significant are you? Of course he's going to care about you. He is with you. You're valuable to him. He's close. He knows your circumstance even more than you do. Your real life, he cares about it. So when it comes to dealing with fear, this is a big deal because God knows all about it, and he's with you in the middle of it. Can I get an amen? God knows about it, and he's with you in the middle of it. So here's the point. I want you to think about this. There's not a whole lot to be afraid of when God is clearly bigger than your biggest fear. The thing is, fear will always be part of the human experience. It's part of what makes us human. So fear's always going to be there in your life to some degree, but you don't have to live like fear is in charge and it's telling you what to do. I think about one of the guys in that boat. His name was Peter, right? Peter was one of Jesus' disciples, and before Jesus died and rose again, the account that we have from Peter in Scripture is a guy who was controlled by fear. I mean, you think about this. Peter said he'd never deny knowing Jesus. Then because of fear, he denied Jesus 3 times. He said he'd stay focused on what Jesus told him was going to happen. I'm going to be filled with faith more than anyone else. And then Peter panicked when Jesus was arrested, right? Peter said he's always going to be there for Jesus. And then when Jesus was crucified, he went and hid because of fear. Yeah, that guy. But when Jesus died and rose again, it changed everything for him because fear no longer controlled Peter. Peter realized that now I can see this, that somebody's been with me the whole time who's bigger than the greatest thing I fear. It's death. I don't even have to be scared of death because Jesus is bigger and he's with me. And so Peter discovers this. And so in a letter that he writes to Christians later on who had never had a chance to meet Jesus, he wants to encourage them with this. This is 1 Peter chapter 5. Peter says, cast all your anxiety, right? Your fear, your burden, your worry, your anxiety, the things that are dominating your thought process, making you say, what if, and I'm terrified. Cast all your anxiety on Jesus because he cares for you. And essentially when Peter is saying cast your anxiety, when he's saying cast, he means like hurl it, throw it, just oomph it. You know what I mean? Just get it off. Just like launch it onto Jesus. These are active and intentional words. It means that casting your fear on Jesus doesn't happen by accident. You have to be active when it comes to dealing with your fear. And so when you feel anxiety or you feel fear or you feel worry, take it and you throw it to Jesus. Why? Because this is the most important part. Peter experienced this firsthand in his 3 years with Jesus. Why? We cast our fear on Jesus because we know that he cares for us. So instead of trying to prepare myself for all the what ifs, I know Jesus is already prepared for all of my what ifs. Jesus is already prepared for the worst case scenario. I don't have to let the what ifs, the projection of the future about my worst case scenario, I don't have to let that dominate me, my heart or my thinking, because I already know Jesus is with it. Jesus is with me whenever that happens, and he's already bigger than whatever happens. He is with me. So think about it this way. Because of Jesus, fear doesn't have to be the boss of you. Come on, say that over yourself. Because of Jesus, fear doesn't have to be the boss of me. Because of Jesus, fear doesn't have to be the boss of me. Because of Jesus, fear doesn't have to be the boss of me. So I want to encourage you to try this week. To practically cast your cares and your worries and your fears on Jesus. I want you to try 3 things. Number 1, name it. Call it what it is. Put words around it. Name whatever you're afraid of. Name it. Say it. And then number 2, write it down. Maybe you write on paper. Maybe you take notes on a phone journal, that kind of thing. But whatever it is, write it down, verbalize it out loud. Because you know what winds up happening? You remove the power of fear when you can see it in front of you. When you can describe what you're afraid of and it stays there on paper, all of a sudden, it's not taking up extra space in your head. It's not grabbing for more control of extra things in your mind and in your heart. It's right there on paper, and it's not expanding. Fear has a way of expanding when it just stays up here rent-free in your head, right? But when you put it out on paper, you're saying, all right, I'm going to call it what it is. It may actually be valid, but you can see whether it's valid or not. Write it down and put it in words in front of you, what's caused you to be so afraid. And then number 3. So number 1, name whatever it is you're afraid of. Number 2, write it down. And number 3, throw that fear to Jesus and write that down. You can say something along the lines of, Jesus, I'm giving you the fear of blank. Hey, if you're taking notes, do this. Just try it. Even if you don't believe it, you're going to have this for later when you're going to need it. Pull out some paper, pull out your phone. You might even put it in the chat right now. But seriously, take out something you can write something down with and write something like this. You care for me, Jesus. And even though it doesn't always feel like it, I'm choosing to believe that you're bigger than any fear I face. Since you defeated death, you can handle my fear. I give it to you. Please replace my fear with confidence in you. Right? It's essentially like saying, Jesus, I'm afraid of all this stuff. I wrote it down, all the what-if situations, but this is what I know to be true, that you're bigger. And faith can overwhelm your fear. That you can say, this might happen, but I know what will happen is that God will be with me. This may happen, but I know what won't overwhelm me is all of that because God is so much bigger and will overwhelm whatever it is I'm afraid of. Throw that fear on Jesus and write it down. And I'd encourage you with this. God has a way of somehow sealing this on our heart even more when we share it with somebody. When we talk, maybe you share this with a trusted friend. You're like, hey, here's what I've begun to realize that I'm scared of, but here's what I'm choosing to believe about God. Maybe you share that with a parent or a small group leader. You may even be as courageous as to do this, that this is the day that you draw a line in the sand. I am no longer going to be controlled by fear. You write it down, and you write down how you're throwing it to Jesus, and you take a picture of that. You share it to social media so that everybody knows, like, hey, I am not scared of that thing anymore because I know even if that's going to happen, God will be with me in the middle of it. And I promise you with this, faith has a way of becoming contagious. Right? Just like fear has a way of spreading when other people share it, faith has a way of spreading when you begin to say, this is the stand I'm taking, that I believe God is bigger. I hope you remember this as we wrap up, that these vibes, that these emotions, that these feelings we experience, especially fear, they don't have to control us. Fear doesn't have to be the boss of us. They're never meant to make us who we are. They are, however, invitations to pay attention. Invitations to pay attention to a greater reality. Something that God is present in even when you can't see it. So while we can learn from our emotions, we need to know that because of Jesus, fear doesn't have to be the boss of us. Fear doesn't have to be the boss of us. Hey, we're going to head to small groups here in a moment. And if you're watching live in the middle of a watch party right now, and you're about to talk about this afterwards, or you're about to join us on a Zoom call right after this, I would encourage you, let's be bold and courageous to face the fears that we face with the confidence to know that Jesus is with us. Together, we can help each other. Fear not.